Good morning to everyone. Today is 18th day of Bhagavad Gita. Verse is 16th. There is no possibility of one's becoming a yogi or Arjun if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough. Regulation of diet and sleep is recommended herein for the yogis. Too much eating means eating more than is required to keep the body and soul together. There is no need for man to eat animals. There is an ample supply of grains, vegetables, fruits and milk. Such simple foodstuff is considered to be in the mode of goodness according to the Bhagavad Gita. Animal food is for those in the mode of ignorance. Therefore, those who indulge in animal food, drinking, smoking and eating food which is not first offered to Krishna will suffer sinful reactions because of eating only polluted things. Bhujate. Anyone who eats for sense pleasure or cooks for himself, not offering his food to Krishna, eats only sin. One who eats sin and eats more than is allotted to him cannot execute perfect yoga. It is best that one eat only the remnants of food stuff offered to Krishna. A person in Krishna consciousness does not eat anything which is not first offered to Krishna. Therefore, only the Krishna conscious person can attain perfection in yoga practice. Nor can one who artificially abstains from eating, manufacturing his own personal process of fasting, practice yoga. The Krishna conscious person observes fasting as it is recommended in the scriptures. He does not fast or eat more than is required, and he is thus competent to perform yoga practice. One who eats more than required will dream very much while sleeping, and he must consequently sleep more than is required. One should not sleep more than 6 hours daily. One who sleeps more than 6 hours out of 24 is certainly influenced by the mode of ignorance. A person in the mode of ignorance is lazy and prone to sleep a great deal. Such a person cannot perform yoga. Verse is 17th. He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. Extravagance in the matter of eating, sleeping, defending and mating, which are demands of the body, can block advancement in the practice of yoga. As far as eating is concerned, it can be regulated only when one is practiced to take and accept prasadam, sanctified food. Lord Krishna is offered according to the Bhagavad Gita. Vegetables, flowers, fruits, grains, milk, etc. In this way, a person in Christian consciousness becomes automatically trained not to accept food not meat for human consumption or not in the category of goodness. As far as sleeping is concerned, a Christian conscious person is always alert in the discharge of his duties in Christian consciousness, and therefore any unnecessary time spent sleeping is considered a great loss. A Christian conscious person cannot bear to pass a minute of his life without being engaged in the service of the Lord. Therefore, his sleeping is kept to a minimum. His deal in this respect is Srila Rupa Goswami, who was always engaged in the service of Krishna and who could not sleep more than 2 hours a day, and sometimes not even that. Thakur Haridas would not even accept prasadam nor even sleep for a moment without finishing his daily routine of chanting with his beads. 300,000 names. As far as work is concerned, a Christian conscious person does not to do anything which is not connected with Christian's interest, and thus his work is always regulated and is untainted by sense gratification, since there is no question of sense gratification. There is no material leisure for a person in Christian consciousness, and because he is regulated in all his work, speech, sleep, wakefulness, and all other bodily activities, there is no material misery for him. Verse is 18th. When the yogi by practice of yoga disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in trance, devoid of all material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga. The activities of the yogi are distinguished from those of an ordinary person by his characteristics: cessation from all kinds of material desires, of which sex is a chief. A perfect yogi is so well disciplined in the activities of the mind that he can no longer be disturbed by any kind of material desire. This perfectional stage and automatically be attained by persons in Christian consciousness, as stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. King Ambarisa first of all engaged his mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Then, one after another, he engaged his words in describing the transcendental qualities of the Lord, his hands in mopping the temple of the Lord, his ears in the hearing of the activities of the Lord, his eyes in seeing the transcendental forms of the Lord, his body in touching the bodies of the devotees, his sense of smell and smelling the scents of the lotus flowers offered to the Lord, his tongue in tasting the tulsi leaf offered at the lotus feet of the Lord, his legs in going to places of pilgrimage and the temple of the Lord. His heart in offering obeisances unto the Lord, and his desires in executing the mission of the Lord. All these transcendental activities are quite befitting a pure devotee. These transcendental states may be inexpressible subjectively by the flowers of the impersonalist path, but it becomes very easy and practical for a person. In Christian consciousness, as is apparent in the above description of the engagements of Maharaj Ambarisa, unless the mind is fixed on the lotus feet of the Lord by constant remembrance, such transcendental engagements are not practical in the devotional service of the Lord. Therefore, these prescribed activities are called archana, or engaging all the senses in the service of the Lord. The senses and the mind require engagements. Simple abnegation is not practical. Therefore, for people in general, especially those who are not in the renounced order of life, transcendental engagement of the senses and the mind as described above is the perfect process for transcendental achievement, which is called yukta in the Bhagavad Gita. Verse is 19th. As the lamp in a wineless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. A truly Christian conscious person, always absorbed in transcendence, in constant, undisturbed meditation on his worshipable Lord, is as steady as a lamp in a windless place. Verse 20-23. In the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless, transcendental happiness realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actually freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. By practice of yoga, one becomes gradually detached from material concepts. This is the primary characteristics of the yoga principle. And after this, one becomes situated in trance or samadhi, which means that the yogi realizes the super soul through transcendental mind and intelligence, without any of the misgivings of identifying the self with the super self. Yoga practice is more or less based on the principles of the Patanjali system. Some are unauthorized commentators try to identify the individual soul with the super soul, and the monists think this to be liberation, but they do not understand the real purpose of the Patanjali system of yoga. There is an acceptance of transcendental pleasure in the Patanjali system, but the monists do not accept this transcendental pleasure out of fear of jeopardizing the theory of oneness. The duality of knowledge and knower is not accepted by the non-dualist, but in this verse, transcendental pleasure realized through transcendental senses is accepted, and this is corroborated by Patanjali Muni, the famous exponent of the yoga system. The great stage declares in his Yoga Sutras. This Siddhi Sakti or internal potency is transcendental. Material religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and at the end, the attempt to become one with the Supreme. This oneness with the Supreme is called Kaivalyam by the monist. But according to Patanjali, this Kaivalyam is an internal or transcendental potency by which the living entity becomes aware of his constitutional position. In the words of Lord Chaitanya, this state of affairs is called clearance of the impure mirror of the mind. The clearance is actually liberation, or the theory also preliminary corresponds with the principles in the Bhagavatam. This is called Swarupna. The Bhagavad Gita also confirms this situation in this verse. After material cessation, there is the manifestation of spiritual activities or devotional service to the Lord, known as Krishna consciousness in the words of the Bhagavatam. This is the real life of the living entity. Maya or illusion is a condition of spiritual life contaminated by material infection. Liberation from this material infection does not mean destruction of the original position of the living entity. Patanjali also accepts this by his words Kaivalyam. This Siddhi Sakti or transcendental pleasure is real life. This is confirmed in the as Anandamaya Vyasat. This natural transcendental pleasure in the ultimate goal of yoga, and is easily achieved by execution of devotional service or bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga will be vividly described in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. In the yoga system as described in this chapter, there are two kinds of samadhi called Saprajanta Janata Samadhi or Asamprajanata Samadhi. When one becomes situated in the transcendental position by various philosophical research, he is said to have achieved Saprajanta Samadhi. In the Asamprajanta Samadhi, there is no longer any connection with mundane pleasure. For one is then transcendental to all sorts of happiness derived from the senses when the yogi is once situated in that transcendental position. He is never shaken from it unless the yogi is able to reach this position. He is unsuccessful 2 days so-called yoga practice which involves various sense. Pleasure is contradictory. A yogi indulging in sex and intoxication is a mockery. Even those yogis who are attracted by the siddhis, perfections, in the process of yoga are not perfectly situated if yogis are attracted by the byproducts of yoga. Then they cannot attain the stage of perfection, as is stated in this verse. Persons, therefore, indulging in the make-show practice of gymnastic feats or siddhis should know that the aim of yoga is lost in that way. The best practice of yoga in this age is Krishna consciousness, which is not baffling. A Krishna conscious person is so happy in this occupation that he does not aspire after any other happiness. There are many impediments, especially in this age of hypocrisy of practicing Hatha Yoga, Dhyana Yoga and Jnana Yoga. But there is no such problem in executing Karma Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. As long as the material body exists, one has to meet the demands of the body, namely eating, sleeping, defending and mating. But a person who is in pure Bhakti Yoga or in Krishna consciousness does not arouse a sense while meeting the demands of the body. Rather, he accepts the bare necessities of life, making the best use of a bad bargain, and enjoys transcendental happiness. In Krishna consciousness, he is callous toward incidental occurrences such as accidents, disease, scarcity, and even the death of a most dear relative. But he is always alert to execute his duties in Krishna consciousness or Bhakti Yoga. Accident never deviate him from his duty as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. He endures all such incidental occurrences because he knows that they come and go and do not affect his duties. In this way, he achieves the highest perfection in yoga practice. Verse is 24. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of mental speculation and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. The yoga practitioner should be determined and should potentially prosecute the practice without deviation. One should be sure of success at the end and pursue this course with great perseverance, not becoming discouraged if there is any delay in the attainment of success. Success is sure for the wrist practitioner regarding Bhakti Yoga. Rupa Goswami says, 1. execute the process of bhakti yoga successfully with full-hearted enthusiasm, perseverance and determination by following the prescribed duties in the association of devotees and by engaging completely in activities of goodness. As for determination, one should follow the example of the sparrow who lost her eggs in the waves of the ocean. A sparrow laid her eggs on the shore of the ocean, but the big ocean carried away the eggs on its waves. The sparrow became very upset and asked the ocean to return her eggs. The ocean did not even consider her appeal, so the sparrow decided to dry up the ocean. She began to pick out the water in her small beak, and everyone laughed at her for her impossible determination. The news of her activity spread, and at last Garuda, the gigantic bird carrier of Lord Vishnu, heard it. He became compassionate toward his small sister bird, and so he came to see the sparrow. Garuda was very pleased by the determination of the small sparrow, and he promised to help. Thus, Garuda at once asked the ocean to return her eggs, lest he himself take up the work of the sparrow. The ocean was frightened and at this and returned the eggs. Thus the sparrow became happy by the grace of Garuda. Similarly, the practice of yoga, especially the bhakti yoga in Christian consciousness, may appear to be a very difficult job, but anyone follows the principles with great determination, the Lord will surely help, for God helps those who help themselves. Verses 25th. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. By proper conviction and intelligence, one should gradually cease sense activities. This is called pratyahara, the mind being controlled by conviction, meditation, and cessation from the senses should be situated in trance or samadhi. At that time, there is no longer any danger of becoming engaged in the material conception of life. In other words, although one is involved with matter, as long as the material body exists, one should not think about sense gratification. One should think of no pleasure aside from the pleasure of the Supreme Self. This state is easily attained by directly practicing Christian consciousness. Verses 26th. From wherever the mind wanders due to its fluttering and unsteady nature, one most certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. The nature of the mind is flickering and unsteady, but a self-realized yogi has to control the mind. The mind should not control him. One who controls the mind and therefore the senses as well is called Goswami or Swami, and one who is controlled by the mind is called Godas or the servant of the senses. A. Goswami knows the standard of sense happiness in transcendental sense happiness. The senses are engaged in the service of Rishikesh, or the supreme honor of the senses. Christian serving Christian with purified senses is called Christian consciousness. That is the way of bringing the senses under full control. What is more? That is the highest perfection of yoga practice. Verses 27. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the mode of passion. He realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is freed from all reaction to past states. Brahma Bhut is a state of being free from material contamination and situated in the transcendental service of the Lord. One cannot remain in the quality of Brahman, the Absolute, until one's mind is fixed on the lotus feet of the Lord. To be always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, or to remain in Christian consciousness, is to be factually liberated from the mode of passion and all material contamination. Verses 28. Thus, the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service of the Lord. Self-realization means knowing one's constitutional position in relationship to the Supreme. The individual soul is part and parcel of the Supreme, and his position is to render transcendental service to the Lord. This transcendental contact with the Supreme is called Brahma Samsparsa. Verses 29. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. A Christian conscious yogi is a perfect seer because he sees Krishna, the Supreme, situated in everyone's heart as super soul. Ishwar Sarvabhutanam Hatsdes Rajun Tisthati. The Lord in his Paramatma feature is situated within both the heart of the dog and that of a Brahman. The perfect yogi knows that the Lord is eternally transcendental and is not materially affected by his appearance, affected by his presence in either a dog or a Brahman. That is the supreme naturality of the Lord. The individual soul is also situated in the individual heart, but he is not present in all hearts. That is the distinction between the individual soul and the super soul. One who is not fluctually in the practice of yoga cannot see so clearly. A Krishna conscious person can see Krishna in the heart of both the believer and the non-believer. In the Smriti, this is confirmed as follows: the Lord, being the source of all beings, is like the mother and the maintainer. As the mother is neutral to all different kinds of children, the Supreme Father or Mother is also consequently the super soul is always in every living being. Outwardly, also every living being is situated in the energy of the Lord, as will be explained in the 7th chapter. The Lord has primarily two energies, the spiritual or superior and the material. The spiritual and the material. Material means inferior. The living entity, although part of the superior energy, is conditioned by the inferior energy. The living entity is always in the Lord's energy. Every living entity is situated in Him in one way or another. The yogi sees equally because he sees that all living entities, although in all different situations, according to the results of fruitive work in all circumstances, remain the servants of God, while in the material energy, the living entity serves the material senses, and while in his spiritual energy, he serves the Supreme Lord directly. In either case, the living entity is the servant of God. This vision of equality is perfect in a person in Christian consciousness. Verse is 30. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. A person in Christian consciousness is certainly sees Lord Christian everywhere, and he sees everything in Christian. Such a person may appear to see all separate manifestation of the material nature, but in each and every instance he is conscious of Christian, knowing that everything is a manifestation of Christian's energy. Nothing can exist without Christian, and Christian is the Lord of everything. This is the basic principle of Christian consciousness. Christian consciousness is the development of love of Christian, a position transcendental even to material liberation. At this stage of Christian consciousness, beyond self-realization, the devotee becomes one with Christian in the senses that Christian becomes everything for the devotee, and the devotee becomes full in loving Christian. An intimate relationship between the Lord and the devotee then exists. In that stage, the living entity can never be annihilated, nor is the personality of Godhead ever out of the sight of the devotee. To merge in Christian is spiritual annihilation. A devotee takes no such risk. It is situated in the Brahm Samhita. I worship the primeval Lord Govinda, who is always seen by the devotee, whose eyes are anointed with the pulp of love. He is seen in his eternal form of Samasundra, situated within the heart of the devotee. At this stage, Lord Krishna never disappears from the sight of the devotee, nor does the devotee ever lose sight of the Lord. In the case of a yogi who sees the Lord as Paramatma within the heart, This the same applies. Such a yogi turns into a pure devotee and cannot bear to live for a moment without seeing the Lord within himself. Verse is 31st. Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the Super Soul, knowing that I and the Super Soul are one, remains always in me in all circumstances. A yogi who is practicing meditation on the Super Soul sees within himself the plenary portion of Krishna as Vishnu with four hands, holding conch shell, wheel, club, and lotus flower. The yogi should know that Vishnu is not different from Krishna. Krishna in this form of Super Soul is situated in everyone's heart. Furthermore, there is no difference between the innumerable Super Souls present in the innumerable hearts of living entities, nor is there a difference between a Krishna conscious person always engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna and a perfect yogi engaged in meditation of the Super Soul. The yogi in Krishna consciousness, even though he may be engaged in various activities, while in material existence remains always situated in Krishna. This is confirmed in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of Srila Rupa Goswami. A devotee of the Lord, always acting in Krishna consciousness, is automatically liberated in this is confirmed in this way. By concentrating one's attentions of the transcendental form of Krishna, who is all pervading and beyond time and space, one becomes absorbed in thinking of Krishna and then attains the happy state of transcendental association with him. Krishna consciousness is the highest state of trance in yoga practice. This very understanding that Krishna is present as Paramatma in everyone's heart makes a yogi faultless. The Veds confirm this inconceivable potency of the Lord as follows. Vabhati, although the Lord is one, he is present in innumerable hearts as many. Similarly, in the Smriti Shastra it is said, Vishnu is one and yet he is certainly all pervading by his inconceivable potency in spite of his one form. He is present everywhere, as the sun appears in many places at once. Verses 32-32. He is a perfect yogi who by comparison to his own self sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress, O Arjun. One who is Krishna conscious is a perfect yogi. He is aware of everyone's happiness and distress by dint of his own personal experience. The cause of the distress of a living entity is forgetfulness of his relationship with God, and the cause of happiness is knowing Krishna to be the supreme enjoyer of all the activities of the human being, the proprietor of all lands and planets, and the sincerest friend of all living entities. The perfect yogi knows that the living being who is conditioned by the modes of material nature is subjected to the threefold material miseries due to forgetfulness of his relationship with Krishna, and because one in Krishna consciousness is happy, he tries to distribute the knowledge of Krishna everywhere, since the perfect yogi tries to broadcast the importance of becoming Krishna conscious. He is the best philanthropist in the world, and he is the dearest servitor of the Lord. In other words, a devotee of the Lord always looks to the welfare of all living entities, and in this way, he is factually the friend of everyone. He is the best yogi because he does not desire perfection in yoga for his personal benefit, but tries for others also. He does not envy his fellow living entities. Here is a contrast between a pure devotee of the Lord and a yogi interested only in his personal elevation. The yogi who has withdrawn to a scheduled place in order to meditate perfectly may not be as perfect as the devotee who is trying his best to turn everyone toward Krishna consciousness. Verse is 33rd. Arjun said, O Madhusudan, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. The system of mysticism described by Lord Krishna to Arjun, beginning with the words Sokojes and ending with Yogi Parma, is here being rejected by Arjun out of a feeling of inability. It is not possible for an ordinary man to leave home and go to a scheduled place in the mountains or jungles to practice yoga in this age of Kali. The present age is characterized by a bitter struggle for a life of short duration. People are not serious about self-realization even by simple practical means, and what to speak to this difficult yoga system which regulates the mode of living, the manner of sitting, selection of place, and detachment of the mind from material engagements. As a practical man, Arjun thought it was impossible to follow the system of yoga, even though he was favorable and worked in many ways. He belonged to the royal family and was highly elevated in terms of numerous qualities. He was a great warrior. He had great longevity, and above all, he was the most intimate friend of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 5,000 years ago, Arjun had much better facilities than we do now, yet he refused to accept the system of yoga. In fact, we do not find any record in history of his practicing it at any time. Therefore, this system must be considered generally impossible in this age of Kali. Of course, it may be possible for some very few rare men, but for the people in general, it is an impossible proposal. If this was of 5,000 years ago, then what of the present day? Those who are imitating this yoga system in different so-called schools and societies, although complacent, are certainly wasting their time. They are completely in ignorance of the desired goal. Verses 34th. For the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Christian, and to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the mind. The mind is so strong and obstinate that it sometimes overcomes the intelligence, although the mind is supposed to be subservient to the intelligence. For man in the practical world who has to fight so many opposing elements, it is certainly very difficult to control the mind. Artificially, one may establish a mental equilibrium toward both friend and enemy, but ultimately no worldly man can do so, for this is more difficult than controlling the raging mind. In the Vedic literature, it is said, the individual is the passenger in the car of the material body, and intelligence is the driver. Mind is the driving instrument, and the senses are the horses. The self is thus the enjoyer or sufferer in the association of the mind and senses. So, it is understood by great thinkers. Intelligence is supposed to direct the mind, but the mind is so strong and obstinate that it often overcomes even one's own intelligence, as an acute infection may surpass the efficacy of medicine. Such a strong mind is supposed to be controlled by the practice of yoga, but such practice is never practical for a worldly person like Arjuna. And what can we say of modern man? The smile used here is appropriate. One cannot capture the blowing mind, and it is even more difficult to capture the turbulent mind. The easiest way to control the mind, as suggested by Lord Chaitanya, is chanting Hare Krishna, the great mantra for deliverance in all humility. The method prescribed is one must engage one's mind fully in Krishna. One, then will there remain no other engagement to agitate the mind. Lord Shri Krishna said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. The difficulty of controlling the obstinate mind, as expressed by Arjuna, is accepted by the personality of Godhead, but at the same time he suggests that by practice and detachment it is possible. What is the practice in the present age? No one can observe the strict rules and regulations of placing oneself in a sacred place, focusing the mind on the super soul, restraining the senses and mind, observing celibacy, remaining alone, etc. By the practice of Krishna consciousness, however, one engages in 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. The first and foremost of such devotional engagements in hearing about Krishna. This is a very powerful transcendental method for purging the mind of all misgivings. The more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened and detached from everything. that draws the mind away from Krishna. By detaching the mind from activities not devoted to the Lord, one can very easily learn Vairagya. Vairagya means the detachment from matter and engagement of the mind in spirit. Impersonal spiritual detachment is more difficult than attaching the mind to activities of Krishna. This is practical because by hearing about Krishna, one becomes automatically attached to the Supreme Spirit. This attachment is called Parshnubhava, spiritual satisfaction. It is just like the feeling of satisfaction a hungry man has for every morsel of food he eats. The more one eats while hungry, the more one feels satisfaction and strength. Similarly, by discharge of devotional service, one feels transcendental satisfaction as the mind becomes detached from material objectives. It is something like curing a disease by expert treatment and appropriate diet. Hearing of the transcendental activities of Lord Krishna is therefore expert treatment for the mad mind, and eating the food stuff offered to Krishna is the appropriate diet for the suffering patient. This treatment is the process of Krishna consciousness.